So this morning we've got a couple of interesting things for you. These have been planned for a couple of months now, and we didn't want to cancel these if anything like that was possible. The first person that I want to introduce to you is an old friend of mine named Kirsten Herrick. Kirsten and I worked together at Kuiper College for a number of years in the enrollment department. And Kirsten is a person that I gotta say, if you're looking for like a real life Indiana Jones type person, that's basically Kirsten. She likes to rock climb and boat trip and do all this kind of thing. I'm gonna invite her to come up now. And most recently, she's actually been serving the Lord in China for the last 2 years. She's been serving in a school that teaches a number of topics, but she's specialized in teaching English as a second language. But then she's also been serving volunteer in a variety of different kind of ministry contexts and what she's been doing there. And she had a really good job. She's a woman that has great capabilities. But the thing I respect the most about her is that she really is a Christ follower. She really does lean in and ask the question, what would God have me do with my life? And so I thought that rather than cancel that, that's definitely a message that some of us are going to need to hear about how we go ahead and continue to live a life of obedience to God when times are challenging. So thank you for being here with us today, Kirsten. And the first question I'd like to ask you is, so why does a woman in her 20s decide to leave a good job in America and go to China?
Good question. The answer that I come to is obedience. God had been moving in my life for a while about where he was leading me. And I had felt that I was working in a Christian school. I was a leader at a high school ministry. I was in a small group, and everything in my life was so only interacting with Christians that I really just felt God through books that I was reading, through sermons that I was hearing. Over the course of years, God was just burning this desire in my heart to move into an area where I wasn't surrounded by all those Christian influences so that I could be a light in a darkness. And I wasn't really sure where that would lead me in the States or abroad. And it was honestly a logistical decision to end up in China where I was. But I think it was just, for me, it was just obedience of following where I saw God leading in my life.
Wow. So when God sent you there, did he send you with any encouragements? Any way that you knew that he was encouraging you to do what you did?
Yeah, I think that for me, what was really important was that when I started, like 2 years before I quit my job, I started seeing God change my heart in that way. And I immediately let my family and my friends in my small group know how God had been moving in my life. And so they were actually able to walk alongside me so that when finally the opportunity came for me to transition and pivot, everyone within about a week or so was praying with me after I had this opportunity. And they all said, yes, this makes sense for you, which is a scary thing. You know, I'm quitting a good job. I have a good community. I was well established and leaving essentially the epitome of everything that I'd ever wanted. And so that was a lot of encouragement and affirmation for me was the community around me that was able to reflect back on and say, this is where we see God leading.
Wow, that's incredible. But when you go and do a journey like this, I imagine there must have been some opposition, some obstacles. What are some of the obstacles that you faced in terms of actually going there? And then once you got there, what were some of those obstacles?
Yeah, the biggest one is my pride. I think that when you move to a new culture, you don't know anything, you don't know the language, you don't know how to get around. You operate essentially like a 3-year-old in an adult body, and everyone thinks that you don't know what you're doing. And so I think that honestly, that took a huge hit, and for me, that was a great opportunity for spiritual growth. Also, I think another obstacle, just being a single adult, moving into another culture where I don't have a strong community, sort of that like isolation and handling that and dealing with that and sort of walking with God through just the difference between my friends in America don't understand this and my friends in China don't understand this. But really relying on God through all of that and having him meeting me in all those moments.
But so at times did it seem pretty dark?
Yeah, sometimes I describe, like, I felt like my heart fell in the crack between like America and China because I felt disconnected enough from America, and I've been there 2.5 years, so after a while, people stopped contacting me as much, and they felt uncomfortable, and I felt uncomfortable. It's just a difficult situation. But also the friends in China had other friends that were closer, and there were linguistic barriers. But it was really also really encouraging, the relationships that I did have, and how meaningful and powerful, whether that would be people from America that had contacted me or my Chinese friends that really valued me being there. It was just a really powerful experience in connecting with other Christians, where you have that bond that is stronger than language and culture, and you just immediately, that was really special. Yeah.
So how did God grow you in your obedience through the choices that you made and the time that you spent there?
Yeah, I think that I originally, I remember laying in my bed in Grand Rapids and just staring at the ceiling, and I knew that God wanted me to transition somewhere. And then when it really came time to do it, I became really afraid, because I was so gung-ho in my mind, like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'm all in for the Lord, this is going to be amazing. And then when it really comes to like, okay, I need to talk to my boss and quit my job, and I need to go to language school, and I need to buy a plane ticket, and I need to like figure out what I'm gonna do with all of my stuff and quit my apartment contract. I think that I had so much fear, and then just realizing as I walk through those doors, like there's nothing you ever lose by following God. Even if you give things up for God, you never lose anything. And I think that was just, it is the biggest encouragement to me, is I haven't lost anything. Nothing I've lost by following Christ. It's only gain. Even when you do give up real things, I think that He meets you in that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like that text that says like that the person that loves their life will lose it. The person that loses their life for Christ will gain everything. It sounds like you're really kind of living that out a little bit. Wow. So just one other last question. How would you encourage other Christ followers to follow God's leading into a challenging assignment?
Yeah, I think the word that comes to mind is faithfulness. Something that I've really had to lean into is God calls us to be faithful, and He doesn't call us to anything more. So sometimes I want to do more, and I say, okay, God, there's something here, but I really only need to do what God has called me to, and it's God's work to change people's hearts. But also, we're not called to do less than faithfulness too. And so I think finding that balance of I only need to be faithful, and just in general, I think that in my experience, at least the Christian life is just not very glorious. It's not glamorous. It's not very beautiful in the in and day outs, but Jesus is, and that's really like what makes it worth it.
You said something there that I want to hone in on, because you said being faithful doesn't mean doing more than God has asked you to do, but it also doesn't mean doing less.
Yeah.
I think that we've got some great opportunities in the coming weeks and coming months where God's going to give us some challenging assignments. For some of us, it may be to stay put when we'd rather be out. For others of us, it may be to be out when we'd rather be in. Talk to us about that aspect of faithfulness that says, what God tells me to do, I will do. Tell me more about that.
I think that we can trust God with our lives and with our hearts and with our desires and with our plans, and not that it's always easy, but if God is calling us to do something, He's the one that's going to be doing it. It's not that I need to show up and perform. I need to show up, and God is going to perform. And that's what is so incredible, is so many times, and China is just one example, but I would go places and be in just such desperate need where I wouldn't know how to handle a situation or the language, or people would be yelling at me and I didn't know what they were saying. And like, God would always meet me there. And like, one time I met a person and the events are just so random, and God just had this person there that spoke English and helped me through that situation. So I think that we need to show up, and we just need to show up and do what God calls us to, and watch God do the work.
Wow, thank you, Kirsten. This has been so helpful, and I hope that you guys were all encouraged by this as well.